So here we are today with the latest Linux Mint released, Linux Mint 11 Katia. Now this, again, is the release candidate, but it's, of course, it's Linux Mint, so I have to give it a review, don't I? So, I want to start out by saying I'm not going to be spending too long on this video reviewing Linux Mint, because Linux Mint is doing the same thing that they've been doing for years. And don't get me wrong, what they're doing is a really good thing. Let me explain. In this chaotic mess that we are in now as Linux users, a lot of us are questioning which distribution do I run on my everyday system. Not one that I want to impress people with, not one that I want to just muck around with. What do I actually use on my everyday hardware? And to be honest, Linux Mint 11 is the answer to your questions. In my opinion, it's probably the best GNOME 2.3.2 distribution that you can get your hands on as of right now. So, Linux Mint 11, what changes have been made? As I said, not a whole lot, but one of the main ones that I want to talk about is the software manager. They've had a fantastic refresh. You can see a lovely splash screen comes up. It's a lot faster to load, and of course we've got our favorite software categories here. They've lined the software manager up a bit more. They've changed it from constantly changing the screen size, etc. It looks much more polished now. The icons look lovely. Enough said, really. The software manager has come in leaps and bounds, and I think it's actually on par with the Ubuntu Software Center now, which previously it had some issues as far as speed goes, but I think they're well and truly sorted now. Good days ahead for the software manager in Linux Mint. They offer some great packages. They bring everything together that the average user is going to want to use, and they've brought it under one roof, and they've really done a great job with this. So well done on the Linux Mint team. Look and theme, you notice I didn't talk about as the start, because it hasn't changed from Linux Mint 10, which is just dandy. Linux Mint 10 theme is quite a nice theme in itself. The Mint X metal is just fine. Wallpapers aren't final, I don't think. So far we just have this 3D generated Linux Mint 11 wallpaper, which is quite nice, if a little bit bright, and we've got some unbranded ones from Linux Mint 10 as well. So again, they're all very nice wallpapers. They do a great job with their artwork. Now, I'm not going to talk about pre-installed applications apart from changes, because probably most of you would know by now what comes in a Linux Mint install. All their custom Mint tools. You can see if I search from the menu here, you've got all of these Mint tools that come installed by default, and this is what makes Linux Mint famous. This is what makes it so workable and so usable on an everyday basis. So I'm not going to talk about these, as most of you already know what these are. This little application, however, desktop settings, is now ubiquitous over KDE, XFCE, GNOME, etc. It works on all of their desktops now, which is great to see. And their update manager has undergone just a few improvements and enhancements. You can see here that it can it's refreshing my repositories for me, and then it will successfully take care of all the updates that I have. You can see here that we've already got updates for the desktop backgrounds, which is very nice, as well as quite a number of updates for everything else. The update manager works, it's 100% functional. Other changes, of course, is Firefox 4, that's going to be in most distributions now. Lastly, we've also got Libreoffice replacing OpenOffice, which again, it's very nice to see. And just out of interest, let's have a look and see what the splash screen is up to. Some distributions take time to customize their splash screens, others don't. In this case, they've left it as the same as Ubuntu, which they probably need to change that orange progress bar, and these icons as well need changing, as they've still got a bit of orange theming to them. As far as compatibility goes, the Mint team are famous as far as hardware compatibility goes. Their driver support is very impressive. Performance on this system has been well and truly admirable. Under the system resources, we are only using around about 300 meg of RAM with a few applications running. So it hasn't really changed that much from Linux Mint 10. Boot up speed is a little bit slower, but I think that's because Plymouth is having issues, and that's an upstream issue with Ubuntu. That's just the way it rolls. Under sound and video, the only change we have here is the inclusion of Banshee at the expense of Rhythmbox. It'll be back and forth amongst the community as to whether this is a good thing. They don't have the Ubuntu Software Center in there, so all of the proceeds that come from the online stores go straight to the GNOME Foundation, just to clear up any of that controversy. In my opinion, Banshee is a better choice, but different people are going to have different opinions, so your mileage will vary. They also include the Compiz Fusion custom icon here on the toolbar, so you can select your window managers, reload the window managers, get straight to the settings manager, etc., so you can change your different Compiz settings, which is good to see. You've also noticed on the side here we do have the overlay scroll bars that are in Ubuntu, but you can disable those if you so wish. Apart from that, the only complaint that I do have is that it would be great to see if Mint could utilize the Nautilus Elementary. Now, I know that project had a bit of a questionable future in the recent past, but I think they're back on track now, so it would be nice to see it as it's a bit more elegant, and in my opinion it identifies more closely with the Linux Mint way of doing things. So, having said that, Linux Mint 11 is a fantastic release purely because it is doing what it does best, and it has continued to do the same thing. It hasn't taken away any usability from users, it hasn't made any decisions for them, it keeps providing what the community wants, and it's the people's distribution. Quite honestly, I can see that a lot of disgruntled Ubuntu users, and possibly even Fedora users, are going to be coming this way because of GNOME 3 and or GNOME Shell and Unity. But it's great to see that they're continuing with what they do best. Linux Mint 11 is a fantastic release. I may or may not install this on my hardware. I'm going to see how I go. Right now, I'm really working with KDE a lot, and quite honestly, I'm enjoying it. But as for a GNOME user, if the GNOME desktop is your thing, then definitely give Linux Mint 11 a go. Major props to the guys for keeping on doing what they do best. In a world where there's so much uncertainty surrounding the Linux desktop, it's great to see a release that you can just give to a new user and say, here it is, this will work for you. So that's great to see. It's a great milestone for the Linux Mint team to be able to have that sort of statement under their belt. So definitely, if you want a GNOME user experience that you know and love, definitely give Linux Mint 11 a try.